Well, welcome everybody. Very excited to have Greg and Ben here. Greg's gonna be presenting, and Ben's here to heckle him. I guess they work together at Kibbe Consulting, do business consulting and stuff. I met Ben because our daughters are roommates at college, so that's been a very exciting to get to know their family. So I'm just going to turn this over to you, Greg. Kind of overall, we've got you've got a presentation, you've got room for questions, and we're giving away a book, and we've got a quiz at the end. So, well, Greg, take it away.
All right. You can hear me okay, right? We're good? Okay. So I'm Greg, and you just heard that part of it. I just want to give you just a little bit of a background so that you understand where I'm coming from. I've spent the last, well, from 2022 to, or I mean, from 2002 to 2021 in ministry. So I was preaching and teaching and doing those kind of things and working with people. The last 5 years I've spent in business consulting, but prior to that, I was involved in a steel company, and we were doing steel processing. But one of my roles there, as we were coming into just the whole computer age, because this was back in the 80s into the early 90s, we were trying to take our shop and move it into a more of a computer data gathering place, so that the data that we were gathering out in the shop was not always 24 hours behind. So we were trying to find a way to get our machines to be able to gather that data and plug it right into the jobs real time. And what we found was, for some reason, I seemed to be the one guy in the company who had a little understanding of computers and computer programming. I'd done my undergrad degree was a minor in computer science and a major in secondary education and mathematics. And so I had a little smattering of what it looked like to program in some very I don't even know what RPG2, I think, is what the System 36 was using at the time. I don't know what it uses today, but I had a little understanding of that. And so we ended up hiring some coders. And so I was the guy who knew everything going on in the company, and they were the ones who had no idea what was going on in the company, but they knew how to code. So I became the translator for them, from shop talk to computer language, and computer language back to shop talk, and plus working with management. So I had to learn to listen well. I had to learn how to translate information and data, and I drew a lot of pictures. That was really about one of the only ways I could help the management see it, was to draw pictures. So what I learned was the title of this course today is really, I had to figure out how to leverage communication for collaboration. What I didn't know are the 5 principles, or the 5 ways we can communicate, that we're going to talk about today. So I just want to share some of those things with you. But one of the things that we've learned is that communication is the key to the making collaborate, or the key to the collaboration that makes teams excel at higher levels. So there's a book called The Communication Code that's written. It's actually going to be one of the giveaways today. And so you just pay attention. You can win the quiz. I don't know what you do. Do you win the quiz, or do you just score the highest and the fastest on the quiz? But whatever that is, you can win that book, and you can go deeper into this if you'd like to. It's pretty good stuff. But they've taken from that book that we've created this presentation through the giant worldwide tools. And the thing about this is that we all like to communicate. We all sometimes think we can communicate, but communication is so much more than just the transmission of information. Transmitting information is not the same as communication. When in the past, I'm married. We have 4 kids. As we were raising kids, my wife was able to stay home while I was working, and I would come home and ask my wife about her day. And she would say, well, this happened with the kids, or I had this conversation with a friend this week, and it was really frustrating. Or she would say, well, your mom called, and whatever that might look like. And so I would jump into problem solving mode and try to help fix her day or fix her problem. And we had more tension over those types of interactions, because she was transmitting in a certain communication mode, and I was receiving it in a different communication mode, and we just weren't communicating. And it took me a while to figure out, right now, she just wants me to care. She just wants me to listen. And so it was a learning process for us early in our marriage, and trying to figure out what that looked like. But When we are transmitting, what we're transmitting, if it's received incorrectly, communication breaks down, and then there's very little collaboration. In other words, the relationship begins to fail when communication breaks down. So here's the thing, looking at just some of this information, communication has expectations attached to it. When we're communicating, we have a certain level of, this is what I'm thinking about as I'm communicating to you. And if I haven't made my expectations clear, then you're going to be receiving it based on your communication code and based on your understanding of what this conversation is even about. So we have to work both ways and figure out how transmitting the information and receiving the information and clarifying it back is sometimes extremely important, when we're actually trying to meet the expectations of the conversation. I hope that makes sense. As we're Well, let's look at it this way. We sometimes, I mean, we've got this expectation scale, and sometimes it's realistic. We've done a decent job. We're kind of hitting the mark on what we're trying to do. But there are other times when it moves to the left there, and it's limited because we haven't met the expectation. Sometimes the other party just shuts down and they're just resigned to, okay, we're just not going to be able to communicate. Or it goes the other direction. Instead of being realistic, it's unrealistic. And I think that we're moving down this path, and we're not there. And then it feels like it is impossible to communicate with this person or this group of people, whatever it is. And so the goal is to try to find the sweet spot in that expectation scale. Communication is the lifeblood of any healthy relationship. When we struggle to communicate effectively, the slide on this thing right here actually moves. The movement to the left is inevitable. So if we're struggling to communicate effectively, it's just gonna fall into the state of limited and resigned, or maybe the other direction, unrealistic and impossible. So here's what we're going for today. We can learn to communicate more effectively. And you'll see later on in this presentation, there's a slide about know yourself to lead yourself. And the whole idea behind that is being self-aware. True communication includes some very practical and some very learnable skills. When we walk through some of the ways we can identify the communication methods and the modes today, we're going to learn what that looks like for us to be able to communicate a little bit more effectively. And hopefully you walk away with something today that you can work on, that you can take away and begin to adjust, and some tools that you can throw into your toolbox to be able to start the conversation, to be able to make the expectation clear when you're moving into a conversation. That way, it can be effective, and it can be accurate in how we're communicating. The transmitting and the receiving will be working both directions properly, and there you're making progress at that point. There's a little example of that. I think World War II, Alan Turing was the guy who developed the Enigma machine. They were having trouble as they were sending messages out to the front lines and communicating. They were getting their, for one, some of the signals were getting crossed. Number two, they were getting intercepted, and the enemy was knowing exactly what was going on. So Alan Turing developed this Enigma machine, and the way that it worked was it would, you had settings on this machine, and every field general and everybody they were communicating to had their own exact Enigma machine, but there were settings on that. And so daily they would send out the new settings, and they would change the settings. And what would happen would be that there would, basically, as they would type in their letters, it would convert it to electric signals, and then it would scramble them through a series of these rotating rotors and a plug board. And then it would light up a different letter on the lamp board, and it create this complex ciphertext. So each key press would advance the rotors in a certain alternating path, and it would change even as you would hit the same letter twice. But what it did is it ensured this high security. The problem was, if on the other end you didn't have your settings set to the identical setting, then the codes would cross and they wouldn't be able to get the right information through. But this created this highly effective, secure communication between both the sender and the recipient, as long as they both had the correct code. And frankly, that's really what communication is about. With the correct codes, effective communication becomes possible again. So we're going to look at 5 different types of communication codes today. The first one, well, here's all 5 of them. Critique is one way. Somebody said, check your facts. I might have that could be. So anyway, you're probably right. Thank you for that, Peter. The 5 communication codes, the critique was one of those, which is basically, I'm inviting you to critique my work. Collaboration is another communication method. And that is the idea behind it of, we want to collaborate together on an idea. Clarify is just making sure that you are clear with what you're communicating, and that you want somebody to repeat it back to you, so that we're sure we're talking about the same thing, that you're hearing what I'm saying. And then care is having that empathy as we move forward to try to learn that idea of, but it's kind of like what my wife would do. My wife would share her day and she just wanted me to care about it, not necessarily fix it. And then celebrate is the idea of let's have a moment of celebration before we move into other parts. So as we look at these 5 communication codes today, I want to just share with you each of them and kind of how you can use this in a conversation or in a meeting, so that everybody in the meeting understands what the expectation is. That's our goal. Our goal is to try to clearly clarify the expectation of what we want to talk about today, why we're communicating. So here's the first one, critique. Critique is you don't have to use this. This is just kind of an example. I'm inviting you to critique my work. I want you to ask the difficult questions. So do your due diligence, and I need to know, why isn't this going to work? So as you present an idea, the critique mode is actually inviting somebody to ask the questions. So as you walk into this, you're basically saying, I'm inviting you to critique my work. There might be some really tough questions here, but if you ask the tough questions, I'm willing to listen and answer those, and let's take our time and walk through this. We're going to get to a better version of this idea in the end if you go ahead and ask the questions. So secondly is collaborate. So this would be the approach to collaborate would be, look, I've got an idea. I'm inviting you to help shape this with me. I really want your wisdom and expertise to help make sure that we get the best possible outcome. So collaborating is just like, let's improve on this idea. It's not necessarily the critique where you're picking it apart. It's the idea of let's throw what we can at this idea and see where it goes from here. And let's create the best possible outcome from this that we can do. So if you get that message, then you know, I'm open to throw new ideas out here or help shape this idea without the threat of getting shot down. So I can go ahead and share and get that information out there, and together we can come up with a better idea. There's the idea of clarifying is the third one. So it's approaching an idea or presenting an idea with this idea. I know I have something important to share. Would you take time to ask some great questions so I can get it out? Because maybe I'm not communicating this clearly to you. So I want you to ask me some questions. And then I also would love it if you would sort of repeat back to me what you hear. That way I know that you understand what I'm saying, or I understand. I can maybe rephrase it so that we can be sure that we're clear on the idea before we move into either critique or collaboration. But you can do these, like in a meeting, you can do each of these stages, each of these communication modes. But it kind of depends. You've got to make sure you've set the expectation so you know where you are in the meeting as you're beginning that process or beginning that idea formulation. So the next one is care. This is kind of a separate one outside of all of those. Those first three are the idea of like taking an idea and formulating it, critiquing it, clarifying it, whatever that might be, collaborating on it. But on care, this just might be like you sat down in a meeting and and the segue to the meeting was, I'm struggling right now. I just need a place to process my ideas, my frustrations out loud. I don't need you to solve anything. This is kind of like my situation I was talking about with my wife. She's not looking for me to solve anything that she says. She just wants to know they're prepared to be present with her. And so this is the same idea. And this isn't necessarily the kind of thing I don't know, depends on your company. Depends on the relationships you have with your friends within that company or the people that are in your meetings. I'm not sure this is one of those things you just take into one of your board meetings and go, I'm really struggling right now. I just need a place to process my ideas because I'm frustrated. However, you can walk into a meeting like that and say, look, I am struggling. I'm frustrated because here was an idea we had and it's not getting there. I just want you to know why I'm frustrated. So if I come across frustrated, I want you to understand that we don't have to solve that at this moment. I just want you to hear how I'm feeling about this and just listen. So this is one of those things that it kind of all depends on who you are and how you're made, as to whether this one it really hits for you. But here's what you do need to know. If somebody else approaches you and they're like, I'm really struggling right now, I just need to share some things that I'm really struggling with, you might have to shift modes from collaboration or critique to, you might have to shift modes to just care and just listen. Sometimes that's what people need, just get their junk out there and just get it on the table. And then from there you can move on. But think about that, where care fits in how you communicate and what your mode of communication is. And then the last one is celebrate. I'm so encouraged. I love to celebrate this success with me. Let's just celebrate together. Let's make sure we truly enjoy this moment and not move on too quickly. There's a Ben and I and two other people. They're really kind of part of our business, not part of our business, but we meet every Monday, and we do this right here. We start our meeting with what was a win this week. No judgment. No, man, it would have been better if. It's just like, let's just celebrate a win together. And so we each go around the table and we celebrate a win. And it's kind of an encouraging time. It's fun to do. It's really, if you want to use this in a corporate meeting or in, whatever your meetings that you're running are, it's really a cool way to start a meeting is, hey, let's just take a minute and celebrate a win this week. What was one win you had? And let's just go around the table and share a win. We don't have to go deeply into it, but if you share a win like that, the cool thing about that is everybody realizes, man, regardless of where we're at right now, there was something good that happened last week. Kind of puts us in the right frame of mind to go into some of the other things. So don't underestimate the power of celebration. I think there's a lot to that, and I think there's a way that you can move forward into a meeting where it might be some hard things to share, but you celebrate first. It sometimes is a good way to start a meeting. So here's the recap of those. Really, the transmitting and the receiving happens best when we identify what the point of this communication is about, and we can do that in segments within a meeting. And so each of these, the critiquing my work is asking the difficult questions and telling me why it doesn't work. The collaboration is let's build on it together and help me get the best outcome. The clarify part is to have patience as I explain this. I may not say it quite right the first time, so confirm what you've heard and we'll clarify this and get this idea out there. The caring aspect is don't try and solve me. Just be present and listen to me. And then the celebrate is enjoy the moment, recognition of what's been achieved. So there's a lot to this. And I think some of these things it may feel obvious to you, but it may not always be obvious to everybody on your team. And so that could be a source of, or a point of how the tension arises if you're in one mode and somebody else is in another mode in a given meeting. So I've talked about this earlier, but step one is always to know yourself in order to lead yourself. So being aware of who you are helps. This picture kind of gives us an idea. We use this a lot in the consulting business that we do. Know yourself to lead yourself. So the infinity loop, of course, is something that we can continually know ourselves a little better and be more self-aware. And then once we know ourselves, we can figure out some of what our tendencies might be. And then as we see those tendencies, they develop into patterns of reactions, and then those actions follow. And those actions produce consequences, and those consequences are what develop into our reality. So here's the thing about this is, if you take a look at your reality and you're like, I don't like where this is right now, you might need to walk that loop a little bit backwards to consequences and go, okay, what are the consequences that I've been facing right now? And then you walk it back to your actions and go, oh, okay, these actions develop those consequences. Well, then what do I need to change? You can't usually change a tendency. When something happens, you have this natural, innate reaction to that. You can slow that reaction down, slow that pattern of reactions down, and decide you're going to react differently. And that's so the tendency is, something happens and somebody pushes back against. I'm what's called a connector. A connector creative pioneer is our 5 voices thing that we use, and my personality is such that when I present an idea, if you push back right away, then you start critiquing it right away before you've appreciated it. So here's what I want as a connector. I share an idea. I want you to celebrate that idea with me for a second, and then maybe collaborate a little bit and then critique it. But if you start right in with critique, even if it's a great idea, I get defensive. And so my tendency is, if I present an idea and you critique it right away, my tendency is to get defensive about that and push harder. And the consequence is that that idea just falls apart, or the relationship begins to fracture. And then my reality is I'm not generating good ideas, and sometimes I just shut down. And so the way that I have to think this through is, I can't take those critiques personally. So this is knowing myself to lead myself. So when something happens, I present an idea, you start critiquing it right away, you start shooting it down right away, then I might get defensive about that. And me getting defensive doesn't produce anything. So I have to decide, what am I going to do? There's a saying I've learned, eat the fish and spit out the bones. There's usually a good feedback in every critique. And I just need to figure out what's the good feedback there. And I can spit out the bones, or I can not take it personal. That's my choice. But I have to choose a different action. And when I choose to take the critique and walk through that and not get offended and defensive, then my consequences change. And it looks like we could collaborate a little bit better on that idea. So this is the idea of knowing myself and being more self-aware so that I can lead myself to a better place. When it comes to communication, we need to understand ourselves a little bit better so that we know what's our default mode of communication. And if we can figure out what our default mode of communication is, then we can adjust as needed and not just plow into that same default mode all of the time. So in the chat, I don't know if you want to do this. This might be a great idea just to kind of get your thinking going. What's the default communication code order when you're communicating with others? What do you like? Pick your first and your second that you would say, I usually go to this and then I go to this. And go ahead and throw those out in the chat, and let's just kind of see what those look like for you. For me, mine tends to be celebrate and collaborate. Nice. Lots of clarifications there. That's good. So here's the cool thing about these. They're all just a little bit different. And that's what I like, is the fact that we're very different people, and we all approach things differently based on our nature, sometimes our nurture, and a lot of times our choice, as far as that goes too. So when it comes to how we, all of your answers are just a little bit different. The question we might have is this, how would your insights impact your team's collaboration and performance? I'm just looking at your answers here. I like those. But think about that. Knowing yourself a little better, and right now, as you've thought this through, how might those insights impact your team's collaboration and performance? Our goal is to try to help businesses grow in their collaboration and grow in their performance as a team. And so as they understand each other better, they can do that better. Here's another thing to think about. What do you think, like thinking about your team? If you've got a team that you work with, what do you think the default codes might be for your team? Not an individual team member necessarily, but like as a whole, which one of these modes do you think your team like falls into by default? Do they immediately begin to critique? Isn't that funny? Yeah. So how do we change that? We change that by starting the conversation with those little sentence starters that I gave you. Starting the conversation with that helps them understand that mode first. So healthy team communication is the key to unlocking a higher performance inside your team. What I love, there's a slide coming up here in just a second. You take a picture of this with your phone if you want. It might help you, but there's also a link in there that might help you if you wanted to contact us and talk more about it. But the first takeaway that we have for today is this. When you're starting to communicate something to somebody, provide the code alongside the message so people understand your intent. That's this right here. Take a picture of this if you want, or you can, I don't know, you can, if this is, I don't know how this works for you, taking a picture of it, probably take a screenshot, I guess, if that works. But the idea of starting your conversation with one of these codes helps everybody in the room know that. Here's the other thing about this. You can sit in this session today and learn this and go, oh, okay, I'm going to give that a try. But if you haven't run that through with your team, they're going to be going, I don't understand what Jim's doing right now, or I don't understand what Ben's doing. Like, what is this celebrate thing? We're used to just picking ideas apart. So you want to probably have them watch this video. I think there's Mark will tell you where you can find it, but watch this video, have them watch it together as a team and kind of walk through it. And you can learn a little bit more about this. Then your team knows what you're talking about as you're doing that as well. It would be wise to spend some time walking your team through these codes so that they know what's happening, what the boundaries of the conversation look like. We would love to help you do some training and even just have a follow-up conversation if that would help you. There's a link at the bottom of the screen there, and you can click on that link, or you can copy that link and type it in, and you can set up a call with us. Ben and I are both on that contact list. So you can feel free to do that, and we'd love to just share some ideas with you and maybe help you figure out how to flesh that out. This is the thing we have to remember. Active listening is a skill that you can develop. Honestly, it just doesn't come natural for us. Active listening is not really the go-to for most of us. A lot of times we're just waiting for the speaker to stop talking so we can then respond. If we're actively listening, there's usually a pause between the end of somebody speaking and somebody else starting up. At the bottom of this screen right here, there's that Kibbe code. It's just a little link. You can actually go there and you can do a more in-depth assessment on your communication code. It's a little deeper than just kind of picking it out as you go right here, but you can do that online assessment and it's free to do. And then if you want, we can get in a chat and talk about those results and what that looks like for you, and maybe even help you figure out some of the tendencies so you can know yourself a little better. As we wrap up here with this part of it, here's what I'd like to do. Just have you do this little active listening audit. This kind of helps you understand a little bit as far as how well you do at active listening. They're not really questions. They're more like statements. And your goal here is in the next page is our next slide is going to be rate yourself. 1 being you completely disagree, and 5 being you strongly agree, and then anything in the middle. So take a minute here and read these statements and rate yourself. Strongly disagree is the lowest, and strongly agree is the highest. So 1 to 5. I take time to truly listen to what others are trying to say. Where do you rank yourself there? I ask questions to draw what other people are trying to say. So you're asking clarifying questions. Where does that fall for you? 1, strongly disagree, or 5, strongly agree, or something in the middle. Number 3, I'm able to summarize what I've heard from others in order to check if I've gotten it right. That's a part of the clarifying stages. Number 4, I use body language to communicate interest and attentiveness to those with whom I'm communicating. I'm sure you've heard of Simon Sinek. He's out there, pretty popular, but he's a big advocate of putting your phone completely out of sight and away when you're in a conversation with somebody, because your body language, even just by having the phone out on the table, or having with it there where you're looking at it all the time, your body language says I'm interested, but only so much. And so what does your body language do? How does it communicate interest and attentiveness to those with whom I'm communicating? Are you good on that, like a 5, or are you somewhere in the middle? Or are you down on the strongly disagree? I don't do that well at all. And then number 5, I resist the temptation to jump in and assume I know what the other person is talking about. For me, I'm just bad. I usually am waiting for, my default is to wait for somebody to just end their talking, and then I just interrupt them and I just keep rolling. And it's a bad one for me. So Daniel, I agree with you. I mean, I don't know about you, but I mean, I agree with you from my standpoint. I'm the same way. I'm not good at that at all. I just jump right in when I shouldn't. So take a minute, rate yourself on those. Hopefully you did that while I was just rambling there. And then just to wrap it up, this is the last slide we've got here. And this is just giving you that picture again. You can feel free, if you want to just take a snapshot of that and screenshot, and just, use that as a little tool to think through what do you want to communicate? What's the expectation of this conversation? And what mode or what code do I want to use so that I can help my audience also engage at the same level of expectation? So that's the presentation. I know that's fairly short. Usually they're a little longer than that, but I'd love to, Ben and I, to be able to just take some questions. So if you've got some questions you would like to jump in, feel
Greg,
free.
can I just add one application here too?
Absolutely.
In addition to being able to work with your team. So like one thing that Greg mentioned is you can use this code within the context of your team and in certain meetings to be able to make sure everybody's on the same page as far as what you're trying to communicate and how. But then also another application is if you're working with a client and you're trying to be helpful, as somebody mentioned just a second ago, that your tendency is to want to critique because that's what you're paid to do and solve problems. But maybe even adding a question at the beginning to your client to say, hey, what would be helpful right here? Do you want me to jump right into critique? Is there anything that you'd like to clarify first? Are you hoping that I'll collaborate on the idea itself? Like you can use some of that language just to set the tone, because you may be surprised sometimes if a client says, actually, I just wanted to share this thing I did. I actually don't have anything yet. We'll jump into the collaborate and critique in a minute. Or they might say, no, just go for it. Just jump right in. Time is money. Let's get this solved. So just some different applications of this without having the context to run your team through a whole training thing, but just to use these words. For the most part, I think people know what these words mean when you bring them up. So it's an easy code to get on the same page with people.
Yeah, it's a good point.
One
Thanks,
thing
Ben.
I want to mention is I'm thinking of this kind of through the lens of most of us are probably doing retrospectives every 2 week. Everybody come in and start going through and say, well, what went well? What do we want to improve? If I'm running them, there's a kudos column where you get to say who's done something really cool, give them a thumbs up. Hopefully everybody else is doing that too. But I think this is really useful. It's a useful lens for me to think about those conversations, particularly when helping facilitate those and recognizing what is the person needing to get out of what they're communicating. They might be wanting to collaborate on a solution, but sometimes people are just wanting to say, this was really hard, and I want recognition for how hard this was. And it may not be something that's solvable. It may just be like, I really have a hard time with this person from this other team, and maybe there's nothing to solve about. They just want the recognition that something was really difficult. And if you don't identify those things well, you can solve problems that are not actually being presented at the expense of the ones that of what they really need. So this is awesome. I like this. There was team I was working with a long time ago that I think everybody on the team, I think there was only one or two people that were actually native English speakers. So they had much more experience with languages than me, but English wasn't their main language. And one person I was always talking to, he'd just start talking, and then within 5 minutes he was always yelling at me, like almost every single conversation. And it was really, I'd never experienced that before. And finally someone on the team took me aside and said, hey, you know what, if you go ahead and just repeat back to him what he's saying, he's yelling at you because he doesn't know that you understand. And you'd probably do the same thing if this wasn't your first language. So, and I started doing that, just that clarifying, saying, okay, I think you're saying this, this, and this. And man, it got a lot more pleasant to talk to him. Just once that I realized, okay, this is what he's actually needing here is the clarification.
Yeah, that's a good point. Any other comments or questions about any of this information? You need me to run back through the slides so you can be sure to pass the quiz?
No. Let's make sure we give everybody the first.
I got a comment. So Greg and Ben, great presentation. I definitely enjoyed it. The thing about this is it's like it's common sense, but not always common practice.
It's a good point.
Yeah, that's right.
So it makes sense, perfect sense, but it's like in the moment you don't stop and pause and and slow down and then go kind of go through these steps. So, but thanks a lot for the presentation.
Yeah, no problem. That's a good, you're right. Though we tend to do that. We tend to just be waiting to respond, instead of really, giving it pause and trying to consider what's being said.
Mhm.
Good point.
Yeah, and within a smaller team too, sometimes there's a tendency to want to fix everybody else's communication, but I feel like there's an ability here and an ease to it where if we just start practicing some things, people start to pick up on it. So, like you said, it's a slow implementation, but if I start to say things in a meeting like, "Hey, just to make sure we're on the same page here, are we trying to accomplish A or B? Are we trying to do critique, or are we just getting clarity?" And then just by me doing that myself, I'm not calling anybody out. I'm just giving an example, and people within us, especially in a smaller team, they start to pick up on that and practice it as well.
Yeah, I think, man, I have these thoughts and then they just like evaporate right about the moment I'm going to speak. Never mind. You keep going.
Hey, I think Maureen had a question. She had her hand up just a second ago.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, thanks, Mark, and thanks to Greg and Ben for bringing this topic. I think that to get really high performing teams, we need to look at the way that we communicate with each other. Um, and that's a way that we can embrace the Scrum values as well. So I really like this content. One thing that was helpful to me, we had a leader here at AT&T a while ago that always wanted to say yes and I think that's a really good way to think about collaboration because I think a lot of people start with like a critique, no,
Mm,
um, but for me, I'm always thinking yes, and you know, have we considered this or could we integrate this other thing, right?
right. That's good.
Yeah, and that's showing the celebrate before you critique too. Because if you skip the yes, you're just going straight into critique. Or if there's a but in there, it's definitely a critique. But the yes is celebrating, and then we can add critique.
That's right. I think Barbara had her hand up.
Hi guys, yeah, great presentation. I loved it. Communication is absolutely key. I think though that on both sides, and I've had this happen when in my younger years, I'm better at it now, but with other people, like if you are asking for critique or for clarification, be open to the responses that you get and don't get defensive. Because it's easy to say, hey, what do you think? And they come back with, well, reword this, or I think this is better. And you're like, you're an idiot. It's perfect the way it is. So like, if you don't really want it, don't ask, because that hurts the relationship actually.
That's a really good point. Another part of that is taking just knowing your audience too. It's important to, when you're asking for whatever feedback, whatever that looks like, just because you might need to call somebody by name, because one of the things we've learned is that certain voices or certain personalities may be silent, and they just may feel like, I don't have a contribution here. I hate the idea. This is going to be a disaster, but they're just quiet. And so if we misinterpret the silence for agreement, we could be in for some trouble. You're not going to get consensus. You're not going to get people aligned and move in the right direction. So if you're looking for feedback, be sure that you be sure that you're getting feedback from everybody in the room. And try to create the environment, like you were just saying, Barbara. Be sure that when you're asking for that feedback, you're taking it well, so that even the silent people feel like they can give you feedback, while it not being a place they're going to turn around and get attacked because of it.
Yes, absolutely. And I find my feedback to others is far more receptive, because I've over the years learned that I don't just give it. I do give it actually, but I preface it by saying, for your consideration, and then give them what I think, so that it's not like I'm telling them to make the changes. It's just like, I've read it. It's good, but here's where you may find improvement. And as soon as you put for your consideration, it still puts it back in their ballpark to make the change or not. Instead of me telling them that I think you absolutely have to. And that has worked well. So I'm just sharing that with this audience. There's different ways to preface the feedback, that if you think there may be some pushback, that you could just not make it an actual statement versus I'm going to help you out a bit.
Right. Yeah, that's good.
Kind of along those lines, one thing I found in consulting is, a lot of times if I suggest something and people are like, no, it's a horrible idea, they push back and stuff. Well, I can sit there and argue with them, but I may be better off saying exactly what you were saying, Barbara, and say, well, just consider it. Maybe this isn't a good time for it, but this is something we want to think about, and then just back off so they feel they won the argument. But if I keep doing it like that, within a week or two, pretty soon somebody else is speaking up saying the same thing I just said, but now it's the team's idea. It's not this guy from the outside doing it. And and then they're more willing to do it, because it's not just Mark saying it's there. I mean, sometimes people listen to me the first time, but it's coming from internally, and it's because it's been internalized. They've had time to think about it and realize that maybe that's not such a bad idea. But that giving the consideration of, you don't have to do this, but here's something, have you considered, is great. I would like to suggest we go ahead and do the quiz, because some people are gonna have to drop off. I want everybody to get the best opportunity to win the book, and then we can chat some more. Does that sound good?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to share here. And that should, okay, so it should pop up on the side of the screen. Looks like a bunch of people are here, which is perfect. If you go to slido.com, type in that number, or some people have been on things where they couldn't get on their work computer from Slido, so you can also just use that on your phone, which will work as well. So let's give you just a second for everybody to get joined up there. And is that working for everybody? Let me know if you have any problems with it. I think that's a good sign it's working. Okay, so we'll give you another 5 seconds. Let's bring up stuff here. Okay, oops.
And you're not allowed to join the quiz.
No. I would be afraid of not doing well.
Okay, here we go. Okay, first question. True communication happens when I transmit all the information I have, I talk and you listen, we both understand what is truly being said, or we each understand what we think we said. When does true communication happen? You have 7 more seconds to lock in your answer. And time's up. And let's see. Okay, so most everybody's, we both understand what is truly being said. So why isn't it enough to just say, I'm going to talk and you listen?
You're not sure that you're getting the right answer, maybe, or you're not sure that you're really truly communicating to your audience.
I think I saw something that was talking about just how communication works and how our brains work, and it kind of gave a diagram of you're going to say these things, and your goal is to form the mental image in their mind that's in your mind. And
Mhm.
that's not a clean process all the time. So, this idea of saying we both understand what's truly being said is very much going to be making sure that the pictures they're seeing in their head is the same as what you were trying to convey. Okay, let's see who got the top spot here. Okay, Judy's in the top spot, followed by uh, Dayla, Alyssa, Tim W, and Daniel. Next question. I'm in collaboration mode when I start with, I want to ask a lot of the hard questions, or I want to share your ideas to get the best outcome. I want to enjoy the victory together, or I want you to just listen. Which of these would describe being in collaboration mode? Okay, you got 2 seconds remaining. And okay, and most people voted for I want to share your ideas to get the best outcome, which is the correct thing. Now, the thing I want to enjoy victory together, that doesn't sound like a bad thing. Is the point that that's not necessarily focused on communication? Why is that not what we want here?
That's more celebration.
Okay. Okay. Good. Next question. Great. Dayla's in the top spot now. Followed by Age and I need to figure out how to pronounce your name. But man, then Aaron, Debbie, and Megan. Hopefully, I was close. The best way for me to grow in my communication skills is to be self-aware and identify ways to lead myself through breaking bad patterns, talk a lot more and become a clearer communicator, listen and don't judge, be context aware and only participate when asked. It's the best way for me to grow in my communication skills. Oh, no one voted for talk a lot more and become a clearer communicator. Okay, we must have learned something here. But yes, be self-aware and identify ways to lead myself through breaking bad patterns. Okay, we got Aaron now is in the top spot, followed by H. Hopefully I'm saying it right. Debbie, Dayla, and Natalie. Next question. Effective communication is a result of knowing my audience and speaking on their level, knowing myself and speaking using only my strong codes, knowing my audience and caring for them, or knowing my communication strengths and knowing the code to identify the right process. Effective communication is a result of which one of these?
Yeah, that was a harder question than the others so far.
Okay. So why is this a better answer, Greg?
Knowing my audience and speaking on their level is kind of you're just that's a content related answer. The knowing my communication strengths and knowing the code to identify the right process is that going into them and going into that conversation by the right introduction. I just want to get some critique right now, or I just want to get some clarification right now. So that's the knowing my strength and going into the conversation with that code is the way to create the best communication.
It also feels like knowing my audience and speaking on their level puts me into a one-way communication mode of thinking. I'm now seeing this as I need to get on their level and give them information rather than having a actual communication both ways.
That's true.
Okay, so let's see here. Okay, Age T pulls in the top spot, followed by Dayla, Natalie, Debbie, and Jeff. And let's see, I think this is the last question. Healthy team communication is the key to unlocking higher performance inside your team, increasing profits to share with the team, gaining more sales for my team, or showing I really care about my team. Which one of these is healthy team communication is the key to which one of these? 2 seconds remaining for the book. And yes, unlocking higher performance inside of your team. So showing you really care for your team probably is not a bad thing, but the key it's going to unlock is higher performance to your team. Okay, drum roll now. Okay, Dela took the top spot by it looks like 2 or 3 seconds. So they're very, very close here. So Dela, if you send me an email, I will get you a copy of this book that they've been talking about. And if anybody else is interested, the link is in the chat. I think I've got it there. Matter of fact, let me post it there one more time just in case anybody wants it. But thank you everybody for coming. We'll stick around if anybody has any more questions. But I tell you what, I'm going to actually turn off